The clock on the wall blinked 11 p.m. Another night, another shift. I work cleaning this big office building downtown. It's usually quiet, real quiet. Most nights, it's just the hum of the lights and the sound of my own shoes on the shiny floors. I like the quiet. It's peaceful after a busy day. I put my headphones in sometimes and listen to music while I push the big cleaning cart around. Tonight, I felt a little tired, but nothing too bad. I started on the 3rd floor, vacuuming the carpets in the empty offices. Desks sat still, computers dark. It felt like a different world from the daytime when people were rushing around, talking on phones, and typing on keyboards. Around midnight, I moved to the 2nd floor. That's where the main offices are, the ones with the big desks and the fancy chairs. I was wiping down a long table in the meeting room. It was a big, shiny table that always had dust on it. That's when I saw it. A pen. Just a regular blue pen, lying on the edge of the table. It wasn't there before. I'm pretty sure. I always clear the tables off first before I wipe them. It was just there. I picked it up and put it in the little container on the table with the other pens and pencils. Weird, I thought. Maybe someone came back after hours and left it. But the security guard downstairs usually tells me if anyone is in the building. He hadn't said anything tonight. I kept cleaning. I vacuumed the big office with the leather chairs and the diplomas on the wall. Then I went to the smaller cubicles. Everything seemed normal. When I went back to the meeting room to do the windows, the pen was on the edge of the table again. I stopped. I looked at it. It was the same blue pen. I know it was. I had just put it away. My heart did a little jump. It was just a pen, I told myself. Maybe it rolled off. But the table was flat. It wouldn't just roll to the very edge like that. I picked it up again, this time I put it right in the middle of the table. Then I kept cleaning the windows, watching the pen out of the corner of my eye. A few minutes later, I glanced back. The pen was gone. I looked around. It wasn't on the floor. It wasn't anywhere on the table. I felt a little chill go down my back. This was getting strange. I finished the 2nd floor and went up to the 4th floor. It's mostly storage rooms and a small break room up there. I don't spend much time on the 4th floor. It always feels a bit creepy, even with the lights on. I was sweeping the floor in the break room when I heard a noise. It was a soft sound, like a being shuffled. I stopped sweeping and listened. The noise stopped. Just the building settling, I whispered to myself. This old building makes all kinds of noises at night. I started sweeping again. Then I heard it again. The soft shuffling sound. It seemed to be coming from the storage room next door. I didn't want to go in there. The storage room is always dark and full of old boxes. But I'm supposed to clean the whole floor. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The room was dark. I flipped the light switch. A single, flickering bulb buzzed to life, casting long shadows across the stacks of boxes. I didn't see anything. Just boxes and old furniture covered in dust sheets. Then I saw it. On top of one of the boxes, there was a small stack of papers. They looked like someone had been shuffling them. I hadn't been in this room yet tonight. No one else should be up here. I went over to the boxes. The papers were just regular white paper. Nothing written on them. I picked them up. They felt cold. As I was holding them, I heard another sound. This time, it was a soft tapping. It sounded like it was coming from inside one of the boxes. My hands started to shake. This wasn't normal. A pen moving by itself was weird, but this felt wrong. I put the papers back on the box and slowly backed out of the storage room. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to be up here anymore. I wanted to go downstairs, where the security guard was. But I still had the whole first floor to clean. I decided to just get it over with. I went down to the first floor. It has the lobby, a few small offices, and the restrooms. I started with the lobby. I was dusting the reception desk when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A small, dark shape moving near the big potted plant in the corner. I turned to look. There was nothing there. It's just my eyes playing tricks on me, I told myself. It was late, and I was tired. I kept dusting. Then I saw it again. A quick movement, like something darting behind the plant. This time, I went over to look. I peered behind the big green leaves. Nothing. I straightened up, feeling a little jumpy. I wanted this night to be over. I moved to the small offices on the first floor. I was vacuuming one of them when I heard a faint whisper. It was so quiet, I almost didn't hear it. It sounded like someone was right behind me, whispering in my ear. I spun around, but there was no one there. The office was empty. Okay, I said out loud. This is getting ridiculous. I finished vacuuming that office and moved to the next one. As I was emptying the trash can, I saw something on the desk. It was a drawing. A simple drawing done with a black pen. It looked like a stick figure, but its arms were too long, and its head was just a big circle with no face. I hadn't seen this drawing before. The people who work in this office are usually neat. They don't leave drawings on their desks. I picked it up and looked at it closer. There was something unsettling about it. The faceless head, the long, spindly arms. It made me feel uneasy. I put the drawing back on the desk and finished cleaning the office as quickly as I could. I moved to the restrooms. I was cleaning the mirrors when I saw something in the reflection. Something behind me. I turned around fast. Nothing. I looked back at the mirror. There it was again. A dark shape, just for a second, behind my reflection. It was gone before I could really see it. My heart was racing now. I felt like I wasn't alone in this building. I finished cleaning the restrooms and went back to the lobby. I just had to sweep the floor and then I could go home. As I was sweeping near the front doors, I heard a sound from outside. A soft scratching sound, like fingernails on glass. I looked at the big glass doors. There was nothing there. The street outside was empty and dark. The scratching sound came again. It was coming from the other door. I slowly turned my head. Nothing. I started to feel really scared. Something was happening in this building tonight. Something I couldn't explain. I finished sweeping as fast as I could. I put my cleaning supplies back in the closet. I wanted to get out of here. I walked to the elevators. I pressed the button for the ground floor. The elevator doors opened slowly. As I stepped inside, I saw something on the floor. It was the blue pen. My breath caught in my throat. How did it get in here? I had left it on the second floor. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it as the elevator went down. When the doors opened on the first floor, I hurried out. I didn't look back. I went to the security desk. The guard, a young guy named David, was reading a book. "Hey," he said, looking up. "Everything okay? You look a little pale." "Yeah, I'm fine," I said, my voice shaking a little. "Just a long night." I didn't tell him about the pen or the noises or the drawing. I didn't think he would believe me. I clocked out and practically ran out of the building. The night air felt cold on my skin, but it was better than the creepy quiet inside. I walked home as fast as I could. I kept looking over my shoulder, feeling like something was following me. When I finally got to my apartment, I locked the door and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. I felt so uneasy. What had happened tonight? Was it just my imagination? Was I just tired? But the pen moving by itself. That wasn't my imagination. I tried to forget about it. I took a shower and got into bed. But I couldn't sleep. Every little sound in my apartment made me jump. I kept thinking about the drawing. The faceless figure with the long arms. It felt like it was watching me. Finally, I fell into a restless sleep. The next night, I didn't want to go back to work. But I needed the money. David was at the security desk again. "Hey," he said. "You seemed a bit spooked last night. Everything all right?" I hesitated. Then I decided to tell him a little bit of what happened. "It was just weird," I said. I kept finding things that I knew I had moved. Like a pen. And I heard some strange noises. David looked at me with a raised eyebrow. "Noises? What kind of noises?" "Just shuffling and tapping," I said. "And I thought I saw something moving." David chuckled. "This old building is full of noises at night. It's just the pipes and stuff." "Maybe," I said, but I didn't sound convinced. That night, I tried to ignore anything strange. I put my headphones in and kept my head down while I cleaned. But the weird things kept happening. A stack of papers I had neatly put on a desk was scattered on the floor. A chair I had tucked under a table was pulled out. The lights in one of the offices flickered on and off even though I hadn't touched the switch. Each small thing made me more and more uneasy. I felt like I was being played with. Then, on the third floor, in the same meeting room where I had seen the pen, I found something else. Scratched into the shiny surface of the table, there was a drawing. It was the same faceless figure with the long, spindly arms. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just my imagination. Something was real. I didn't finish cleaning that floor. I grabbed my cart and hurried to the fourth floor, hoping the storage rooms would be less creepy with the lights on. But as I was sweeping the break room, I heard the shuffling sound again, coming from the storage room. This time, it was louder. And then I heard a voice. A soft, raspy whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like someone was right on the other side of the door. I froze, my broom in my hand. I didn't want to open that door. I wanted to run. But curiosity, or maybe just a stupid sense of duty, made me move towards the door. I reached for the handle, my hand shaking. Just as my fingers touched the cold metal, the door creaked open a tiny bit. A sliver of darkness. And then I saw something. A pale, thin hand. The fingers were long and bony. I gasped and jumped back. The door swung shut. I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I had seen a hand. A real hand. But who did it belong to? No one was supposed to be in the building except me and David downstairs. I ran. I didn't care about cleaning anymore. I ran out of the break room, down the hallway, and to the elevators. I didn't even wait for the elevator. I took the stairs, 2 at a time, my legs burning. I burst through the door to the lobby, panting. David looked up, startled. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "There's someone." "Upstairs," I gasped. "In the storage room." I saw a hand. David looked confused. "No one's up there. It's just you." "No, I swear. I saw it." David sighed and put down his book. Okay. Calm down. Let's go check it out." He got up and followed me to the elevators. We went up to the 4th floor. The break room was empty. The door to the storage room was closed. David opened it slowly. We both peered inside. Just boxes. Dust sheets. Nothing else. "See?" David said. "Just your imagination." But I knew what I had seen. I knew I wasn't crazy. We went back downstairs. I felt foolish, but I also felt a deep sense of unease. The rest of the night, I stayed on the 1st floor, cleaning quickly and keeping an eye on the shadows. Nothing else happened, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The next day, I almost called in sick. But again, I needed the money. When I got to work, David was talking to another security guard, an older man named Frank who works during the day. "Heard you had a spooky night," Frank said, looking at me with a knowing smile. "It was weird," I admitted. Frank nodded. "This building has stories. Been here a long time." "Stories?" I asked. Frank leaned in. "Yeah. A long time ago, there was an accident on the 4th floor. A worker. He fell down the elevator shaft. Died right there. My blood ran cold. The 4th floor. The storage room. People say. Sometimes you can still feel him up there," Frank continued, his voice low. "Things move. You hear noises." I thought about the pen, the shuffling papers, the drawing, the hand. "They say he doesn't like being disturbed," Frank added. I didn't say anything. I just felt a shiver go down my spine. That night, I was terrified to go to the 4th floor. I cleaned the first and second floors as quickly as possible, trying to ignore the feeling of being watched. But I couldn't avoid the fourth floor forever. My boss had been clear the whole building needed to be cleaned. I went up to the fourth floor, my heart pounding. The hallway seemed darker than usual. The air felt colder. I started with the break room, keeping the door to the storage room firmly closed. I swept and wiped down the tables, trying to focus on my work and not the creepy feeling that was creeping over me. As I was emptying the trash can, I heard the shuffling sound again. It was faint, but it was definitely there, coming from behind the storage room door. I froze. I didn't want to go in there. I really didn't. But then I remembered what Frank had said. The worker who fell. Maybe he just wanted to be left alone. I took a deep breath and walked towards the storage room door. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. I opened the door slowly. The flickering bulb cast long, dancing shadows. "Hello?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Is anyone there?" Silence. I stepped into the room, my eyes scanning the stacks of boxes. Nothing seemed out of place. "I'm just here to clean," I said, feeling foolish talking to an empty room. "I won't bother you." I started to sweep the floor, keeping a wary eye on the shadows. The shuffling sound didn't come again. I finished cleaning the storage room as quickly as I could. As I was about to leave, I saw something on top of one of the boxes. It was the drawing. The faceless figure with the long arms. But this time, there was something different. A small, shaky line had been added to the drawing. It looked like a mouth. A silent, open mouth. I stared at it, my blood turning to ice. It felt like the figure was trying to say something. I backed out of the storage room, my legs feeling weak. I had to get out of here. I finished the rest of my shift in a daze, my mind racing. What was happening? Was the building haunted? Was I losing my mind? The next night, I almost didn't go to work. But the fear of losing my job was stronger than my fear of the building. When I got there, Frank was on duty. "How was last night?" he asked, his eyes curious. I showed him the drawing. His face went pale. "Where did you find this?" "In the storage room," I said. It was there again. And this time, it had a mouth. Frank stared at the drawing for a long time. "He's trying to communicate," he said finally, his voice low. "Communicate what?" I asked, my voice trembling. Frank shook his head. "I don't know. But be careful up there." That night was the worst. The strange occurrences were more frequent, more intense. Doors would creak open on their own. Papers would fly off desks. The whispering was louder, closer. I felt like something was always just behind me, watching me. On the fourth floor, the air was heavy and cold. As I cleaned the break room, the lights flickered violently. The shuffling sound from the storage room was constant. I didn't go in. I couldn't. As I was leaving the break room, I saw something move in the hallway. A dark shape, fleeting, disappearing around the corner. I froze. I knew I wasn't alone up here. I ran back to the elevators and went straight down to the lobby.
play dead and I stay dead. Baby, you